We've seen a big transition from oversized implants, like very large butts, to like, well, wanting their implants out, wanting smaller implants, like wanting more natural restorative results and more dramatic transformations. And that's a good time to be a plastic surgeon.
What is the reason why people come in? The labiaplasty interests me.
People can have some chafing within their underwear, exercise, riding a bike, or just plain aesthetic. And it's interesting because maybe a few years ago, there wasn't an ideal picture of what the labia was supposed to look like because it's all very normal. Our bodies are unique, our anatomy comes in all different shapes and sizes, but social media and I think people opening up about their cosmetic procedures, there is now this image of what people want to achieve. People kind of popularize the labiaplasty, like they call it like the Barbie procedure, but I'm just trying to help people get a natural restorative result. I am trying to go through IVF. I was able to protect some fertility and save 12 eggs back then. I heard a statistic a few months ago at an aesthetic meeting that 74% of women plastic surgeons have issues with infertility, and it makes sense.
I'ma kick back when you fake like that.
Welcome back to Beauty Unveiled. I am Dr. Angela Sturm, and today we're going to be talking with Dr. Erica Bartlett. She is from Houston, did medical school at Texas A&M, as well as undergrad, which I did too, and then did general surgery at Vanderbilt, and then came back to Texas at Baylor for plastic surgery.
You got it.
She does plastic surgery here in Houston and has family here, and we're going to talk about all things plastics and just being like a woman and all the things that go along with a woman plastic surgeon.
Yes, excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to spilling everything.
All the tea. I love it. So, how long have you been in practice?
So this is my 5th year in practice, and I left, finished residency in 2019 and joined Scott Yarish over on I-10 Dairy Ashford in Houston. So I've been with him for, like I said, going on 5 years now.
So was 2020 crazy for y'all? Because it was so crazy for us, like crazy busy in a good way.
It was interesting because it was the year after my first year of practice, so I was collecting for my boards, and then COVID happened, and then all the lockdown, it was just a huge mess. And so remember there was 6 weeks, or there was at least 6 weeks for us that we couldn't do any elective surgery. And so, gosh, I was very lucky that I was able to collect enough cases. But after lockdown, I mean, I'd say the industry, as you know, just boomed. Everybody had free time, they had expendable income, and they were looking at their face all day. And so they wanted cosmetic work.
It was a great time to be in practice.
It was. It's actually very interesting because, like I said, it was my 2nd year out of practice, and so I just had this, I guess, false reality of this is what the cosmetic industry norm was. And as it's kind of like settled and plateaued down, like you can really see and feel the difference, you know?
Right. We're like, what is this? Like, no, this is normal.
Yeah, I was like, well, I thought that's how it was supposed to be. Like in 2020, we were so busy. But yeah, it's interesting, the first 5 years seeing kind of the waves, the peaks and the valleys of the industry, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah. So what all procedures are your favorites to do?
So I currently am only doing cosmetic surgeries. When I started in 2019, 20, maybe even 21, I was doing some reconstruction. I was doing some hand. But my priority, my focus, my energy has really been into the cosmetic field. So face, breast, body, but I would say my main bread and butter is breast and body. I do a lot of labiaplasties, I do a lot of tummy tucks, but my focus is particularly on cosmetic work that is very natural. And so I don't stick to the bigger and better is view in Texas. And so I think we've seen a big transition from oversized implants, like very large butts, to like people wanting their implants out, wanting smaller implants, like wanting more natural restorative results and more dramatic transformations. And that's a good time to be a plastic surgeon.
And it's good. Like, I like the aesthetic. I like that philosophy. What is the reason why people come in? So the labiaplasty interests me just because, you know, not everybody does it.
What is labiaplasty?
Like, yeah, and like what is the reason why people usually come in for that?
There's 2 main reasons. One is that people can have some chafing within their underwear, exercise, riding a bike, or just plain aesthetic. And it's interesting because maybe a few years ago, there wasn't a ideal picture of what the labia was supposed to look like because it's all very normal. Our bodies are unique. Our anatomy comes in all different shapes and sizes. But, with social media and I think people opening up about their cosmetic procedures, there is now this image of what people want to achieve. And, as long as it's reasonable and it's safe, like, I don't mind, like, being the driver to help get them there.
Right. Do they come in with their Instagram pictures?
Not usually because you can't show a labia on Instagram.
Oh, that's true.
But usually they come with screenshots from the website because, you can't put it on social media, but you can show a labia on a website, but you have to click you're 18 or older. So like that definitely like gets the 16-year-olds out the door.
Yeah.
Because they listen to that.
Oh, I'm sure.
But yeah, people kind of popularize the labiaplasty, like they call it like the Barbie procedure. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to help people get a natural restorative result. So people that come in and they want their parts amputated, I'm really not the right surgeon for them.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I have no problem saying no.
Right.
I just, it's your reputation and you don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you're just helping them get to a more confident self.
Yes.
So, in this line of work, things get delayed. Everything's about delayed gratification. We go through the education and all the training and all that kind of stuff. And we're still women and we're still, you may want a family, but not. We were talking before this and I cannot imagine during med school and residency, and thank goodness for the people that do that, and I have all the respect. It's chaos at my house, 24/7. But we get here, and you're a little bit younger than me, but, I'm 40s and you're 30s, and you're like, okay, like, it's time. It's a good time. Like, life is pretty established. Like, so tell me about your journey with that and where you're at and things you'd wish you'd known.
Yeah. So currently I am trying to go through IVF. So just a little backstory. When I was 32, I was in my 5th year or chief year of residency. There was kind of a wave of us women residents that were freezing our eggs. And that was kind of the beginning when egg freezing became a thing. I mean, before that, I wouldn't know anything about that to preserve future fertility. And so fortunately, I was at a program that gave me the time to be able to do that. And so I was able to protect some fertility and save 12 eggs back then, actually 16, not knowing if I was going to need them. And then kind of flash forward, I just got married a year ago. I put my romantic relationship aspect of my life kind of on hold to complete my training, establish my career, like build my reputation. And finally, when that time came, and then you meet your Prince Charming, and then they put a ring on it, and then, they tell you you're elderly in the eyes of the OB-GYNs.
The geriatric pregnancy is the worst term ever and should be done away with.
Exactly. And so, we go through another round of making eggs, making embryos, and, they don't tell you that the older you are, the more difficulty you can have conceiving, whether it's naturally or even with assistance. And so we are having trouble. We're going to get through it. It's fine. But, decisions that maybe I made when I was a little bit younger have affected my ability to get pregnant now. And so I think IUDs are amazing. They are the most, accurate form of prevention. I think it's more than 99.9% prevention for risk of pregnancy. But apparently when you have them in for 10 years, a decade, I guess, it can affect your ability to conceive. And so that's where I'm at. So
one of those things that should be talked about more, like when making the decision to put it in and how long to leave it in. Okay, I might start thinking about this in the next few years. So maybe try another, method.
Well, my mind was at I guess maybe 20-something years old was I don't have time to have a cycle. I'm operating 12 hours plus a day, and I'm on call, and I'm tired. And, the boys don't have to go to the bathroom and as much as the girls do, so you just want to level up. And so at at that time, actually, that was a great option for me. And I'm very happy that I did that. But no one told me that there would be any implication for future infertility. And I didn't ask. I'm not mad at anybody.
Yeah.
You know, you learn from your experiences and your past.
Yeah. And you can help other people, you know, like, wow, that's not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
But I would say if I was going to do it again, would I? And the answer is yes, I would. But what I probably would have done is maybe a little more research about the impact it would have on pregnancy. And so maybe we could have removed it a little bit earlier and done some different form of contraception until then. But, you know, giving yourself 3 shots a day, bloating up like a whale, not fitting into your scrubs, and then, you know, having your transfer cancel, like, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot physically and like mentally. Every time you have to do something, like it's a lot.
But there's a lot of people that are in my boat. I mean, this is just very new for me. I only started down this journey in January. But when I would go for my ultrasounds and blood work, I mean, they herded us in like cats. I'm just one of like 50 at a time that are in this IVF process. And to be honest, there are a lot of physicians in there. There are a lot of women physicians. So I'm not alone. You know, a lot of us have put our fertility on hold. And I think I heard a statistic a few months ago at an aesthetic meeting that 74% of women plastic surgeons, and it probably correlates with other surgical specialties too, women have issues with infertility. And it makes sense because we're on our feet all day.
Yeah.
We sleep less. We probably have higher levels of cortisol because we are stressed out to the max. And so it makes sense that we would have higher infertility. And then we're older, right? Most surgical trainings are a minimum of 5 years. And so by you're getting out earliest, maybe 30,
Yeah, probably at the earliest.
you know, and they say at age 32, your egg viability goes down by 50%.
And then continues like exponentially.
Yeah. So after 39, like you really have a big drop. And so 39's in February, Dr. Stern.
Yeah, I went in because my friend who's a derm said, you should do something. Like, you're turning 37, you should do something. And I was like, oh my gosh, so I go see her guy. And I was like, should I freeze some eggs? And he was like, we're past that point. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, it's time to like do it or not. You know, because also my concept of time is a little bit different because I feel like I was training for so long and then life finally started. But I was 30 whenever it started, 30-ish, whatever it was. You know, it's like, oh, okay.
But it's funny, right? You spend your whole life trying to actively not get pregnant.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I need to get pregnant. And it's not easy.
Right.
It's like, oh my God, like I worked so hard to not.
I know.
But
tried
you know,
so hard.
if you didn't, then you'd be pregnant at like 18. It's like, it's a double-edged sword.
I know. I know. And it's hard. I feel like I was lied to where they're like, you don't want to get pregnant when you're young. And I'm like, but it's not easy when you're older either.
I mean, like, I want to be like
easier.
Cameron Diaz because I think she's like she's in her, she had a baby in her 40s or something, like 42, 45. I mean, she's killing it.
Yeah.
I want to be a Cameron Diaz.
Yeah. I'm sure she has lots of help, which is key. The help is key.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, or like the Kardashians, I think Kim had maybe 1 or 2 of her own children, and then she had a surrogate.
Yeah, and that's always an option, you know.
Just saying, it'd be nice to, you know, feel what it's like to grow a human being in your body. I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Yeah, it's different, you know. You feel the little, and it's so funny because the little movements and the things they do, you feel it, and then once they're born, like even now, whenever I sleep next to my oldest, she'll do this little flutter kick with her foot, and I'm like, oh. I used to feel that. It was like a little flutter
I remember when you
kick.
used to kick me in the rib, you sweet angel.
Yeah, and the one foot that's kind of like stuck out, that was like, yep, that's the one. That was the one that was right here. And then the older, or the younger one's huge. She's so tall. And her little.
And you're like, I made this.
Made this tall girl. That's why I was uncomfortable for the last 3 to 4 months, because I'm like, she's so big.
Yeah. And so when you had your children, did you feel like you were happy with your birth plan? Did you feel like you were educated to make all your decisions well?
I went in with no expectations. I was like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like, I have no plan. I want the drugs. Yes to the drugs. Epidural, I was like, yes. And even the second one, they said, I was like, yeah, I want the epidural, but it's not that bad right now. And they're like, no, we're calling him because it's going to get there fast. And by the time that he got there, I was like, oh, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's like the real work starts probably like when you get home. It's like you birth this child and everyone's like, the mom. No longer do they care about you. They care about the baby, as they should. And then you have another full-time job.
Oh, yeah. And it's nonstop. And as much as we feel like we know, there's so much that I didn't know.
I'm like, am I qualified to take this infant home? I mean, I'm a surgeon, but like, is this safe for this infant to come with me?
You're like, really? We're going to go home? Okay. All right, great. But you do know, like, I think every mom has that intuition, because the first one I brought her to the pediatrician, like, the first week, and I was like, her poop's not normal, and she's like, oh, they poop a lot, it's fine. And then it was like, I'm just telling you, it's like 15 times a day, like, I can't catch it in the diaper. Oh, yeah, so she had blood on her stool, and we had to change her whole diet and all this stuff, and I'm like, your intuition is good. And you have training it feels like intern year, where you're like, I'm going to survive the night, and in the morning, help is coming. I just have to survive the night. And then there'll be more people. It's fine. You and me, kid.
It sounds like when you're on call, you're like, I can do it. I can get through these 12 hours.
Yeah, I can do it.
And then I'll work the next day, and no one will care about me.
But there will be more people here, and they can help.
Well, probably just like, I think the toughest thing for me to think about or like try to conceptualize is like how to balance it all. Because, I mean, for you, you own your practice, you're a well-established surgeon, you enjoy doing surgery, you work full-time, but you're also a full-time mom. And so how do you do it all without killing yourself?
I have a very supportive partner, and that's very important. He's stay at home, but as you know, does little jobs on the sides.
As I know, he comes to my office and teaches my staff how to do Morpheus.
I know, he was like, oh, I met Dr. Bartlett, and I was like, yeah, and she nice. He was like, yeah, she's really nice.
It's like stabbing somebody in the face.
But it's nice that we have that understanding, and he's okay with that, being the one to pick up and drop off, and have that, because it's a lot. Like, who can pick up at 2:45? I don't, It's a lot. But you're still always the mom, because then I still have to make sure we get on the schedule for the curly haircuts, because we have to go to a special person to cut the curly hair, and make sure we have the doctor's appointments, and make sure they wear the manatee shirt for the whatever day. He's a dude, and he's good with them, but there's only so many things he cares about. He doesn't care.
I mean, I just got married a year ago, and I love my husband dearly, but I didn't know that, like, when you marry someone, like, you marry a man, then you also inherit another child. And so then you have another child, so then you have multiple children, and then you have to feed them and bathe them, and that's including your husband, you know?
Like, did you take a bath today?
Did you eat your vegetables?
Yeah.
My husband doesn't eat vegetables, so that's why I bring that up. So,
I'm
going to be like, okay, Daddy's not eating these, but you're going to eat these.
Yeah, and then that's hard, because they're like, but he has the good food, and you're like,
yeah, he's got the French fries, and see, in my house, it's like quite the dichotomy. So I'm very healthy, and then my husband, he's Cajun, he's from Louisiana. He loves his fried food. And, I mean, his body can tolerate it. He's thin.
Right.
But that's just not how I eat.
Right.
And so sometimes, like, he calls his Uber Eats, and I make myself a salad with chicken, and that's working. And so what's the kid going to eat?
They're going to eat the third thing, which is not what either one of y'all eat. Yeah. And you'll make 3 dinners.
Maybe the nuggets.
Maybe. And you never know, because I have one kid that she'll eat the nuggets, and then the other one is obsessed with broccoli. And
see, that's what I want my kids to be like. I want them to come out of the womb like asparagus, broccoli.
And you just feed it to them from the beginning. Like, season it really well, and you're like, this is what we're having. And then they'll eat it, It's the kids that I see that the parents are like, oh, do you want a nugget? I'm like, well, if a nugget's
if
not
you
an
didn't
option in
offer
our
it.
house.
Well, the problem, because my husband will be over there gagging while, like, they're eating, like, green beans. Like, it doesn't set a good look.
Yeah, you're like, you go in the other room.
Stop that gagging. It's just a green bean.
It's fine. Yeah, that's the challenge. And then, yeah, who knows if the kids will take one or the other, or if they'll be like all something completely different. You're like, all right, whatever. You never know. They all have their own personalities, and
Yeah. We'll see. We'll probably be needing a lot of help from the family. I'm very fortunate because my parents live actually just down the road, and my in-laws live in Lafayette, but that's just a quick 3.5 hour drive away. So
nice.
really supportive families. So they will be heavily involved in this childcare situation.
And it's wonderful, and it's really good. And also, everyone has opinions, and so there's that too. You know, like
Yeah.
But it's great because you'll have people you can say, hey, can you watch the kids? And then y'all can have a date night. And you're not worried because you're like, everyone, they love that they're going with their Nana, and the Nana loves that they're there, you know, and you don't have to feel bad about it. Which, from the outside of someone that doesn't have that, sounds really good. You know, I don't know how that plays out, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice when you have kids that can play with your friend's friend. My ideal situation would be having, my best friend has a kid the same age. They can play. We can have wine. You know, options are endless, really.
And that is good too, having that like family that you create. Someone was telling me the other day, oh, do you have a family that you can go on vacation with? And I was like, that's a great idea. Then you have more adults that can watch children, and then you can go to the spa while the husbands watch the kid or whatever. And I was like, that's
that sounds like a great
actually
idea.
a good idea. We need to make friends.
I thought that's why you bring your parents.
Yeah, it depends on the parents. It sounds like yours will be great and
Well, they don't really have a choice. Baby, you hold, watch.
We tried that once with my dad, and he left the baby downstairs and walked upstairs. And we're like, okay, never again. Papa does not get to watch the kids.
Well, maybe that's a learning curve because my brother was the first one to produce a grandchild for the family, and my dad is just so sweet. I guess he hasn't been around many children, so like when he was holding Charlie for the first time, it was just so very obvious that he is not like innately like the one to like coddle a baby because he holds the child out like this, like elbows locked, because he thinks he's gonna drop like an 8-pound infant that's not even moving, and he's like, it's so sweet. It's like so uncomfortable to even watch that. But he's but now as the kid's like a little bit older and talking, like they do things more interactive. But my mom probably prefers that like baby, like goo goo gaga stage, your heart kind of just melts.
Yeah, a little snuggly.
Yeah, but then when they're more interactive and they say like papa and stuff, like
it's easier for them.
For the grandpas.
Yeah, usually that they do better with that stage. And not being the first grandchild is good because the first one they're like really like, oh my gosh, you're tiny. Like my first one, she was a teeny tiny baby, so everyone was like afraid to hold her. And then my sister had a baby, and then my second one, like I said, she's a big kid, you know? And so Papa was not afraid to hold her because I was like, yeah, you can't break this one. She's huge. She was huge, and so he was so much more comfortable.
Well, it's so funny, though, like, because, like, as doctors, right, like, we have children later, but do you agree that, like, a lot of your friends had babies earlier?
My friends have grandkids.
Yeah. Oh, really? Wow, okay.
Yeah, that makes me feel super old. Yes.
I'm not there yet. But what
I know, we were like, but wait, the math does add up. Oh my gosh.
Actually, I carry the one. Well, when my friends started having children, this was probably when I was in residency, maybe one that was in medical school, but most of them in residency, and they had their, the baby, and I'd, be a good friend and come over, like bring them, the breakfast platter, hold the baby, and then they're like, don't forget the head, but you have to do this. And you're like, okay, you also know that, like, a cleft lip trained surgeon, like, I get it, but like, I mean, I'm not gonna drop your baby.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop your baby. You could probably hold the baby. I love the little tiny babies you can put on like one arm.
Like you have to hold the neck up. I was like to my own brother, I was like, I love you, Travis, but I know. I know.
I've got it. I've delivered these. I know.
I've got it. I've caught a couple coming out before. Just a few.
Yeah.
Not routinely, but like it's
I've
okay.
done it.
They're pretty resilient.
Yeah, they're much more resilient than what people think. I love the OBs that are like half holding the baby and they're holding.
Yeah, they just come out. They're like, got him by a foot.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh my gosh. Like, if they can do that, then I can hold
It's
the baby
fine.
like this.
Yeah, they're gonna be okay. It's fine. Yeah, and the ones that you are not as worried about, like, do better. They do better as kids. They do better as adults. Where you're like, you're fine. Then the ones you're like, oh my God, are you okay? Then they freak out. And
Yeah, like the helicopter parents.
yeah, then they produce the staff members that are hard to manage. So I keep that in mind. I'm like, no, they can do it. You can do it. Independence. You got this. You can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's tough. We all have friends and family members that adopt the helicopter parenting modality, and it's tough to watch.
Yeah, it's like exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It is exhausting.
Yeah, how are you not tired? I'm tired watching you. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. And the first one, it's hard not to because that's your baby. And that's, and then the second one, you're like, no, it's fine. You're okay. And then you
Like,
figure
you
out how
got-
the birth
you-
order thing happens.
You got this, yeah. Yeah, actually, that does make sense. Yeah, the first one has everything new. The second one's like, no.
Share with your
No.
sister. It's fine.
Yeah, you don't need that. Like, we found this on the corner.
You're fine. You're like, pick it up off the floor, dust it off. It's cool. Just keep going.
It's totally fine. There's just a little bit of crusty vomit, but like it's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. I
no
did
bacteria.
explain the 5-second rule to my oldest, and she was like, my lollipop. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's 5 seconds.
Your mom's like,
I
it's
know,
fine.
exactly.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
You're good. It's,
It prevents disease.
yeah, it's good for your immune system.
Well, what is your thought kind of on the vaccination schedule for kids now? I hear of a lot of friends that are kind of like contradictory to, the traditional vaccination schedule that we all had when we were kids.
We do the normal. I don't even know if I should admit, like, we kind of skipped the COVID one because my kids had COVID twice. We had it when my second one was born, literally as she was born. 10 days later.
She came out of the womb and then
With COVID.
breathed the air.
Yeah, I don't know where Art was working at UT, and they were like, you're sick, keep working, and so who knows what was going on there. And then it was the beginning of it. Nobody knew what was going on. Like, I had to get tested to have the baby. He did not have to get tested. Guess who was going out, walking around the hospital,
I
getting
know.
coffee? He wasn't tested. None of those dads were tested,
That was a tough time to deliver back then. Well, I guess what I was really asking is like, I have a lot of friends now that are like kind of discounting like vaccinations now that they routinely recommend. And I'm pro vaccination for my children. I could see the concept of like maybe like limiting the volume of vaccinations given at one time. But,
just for your sanity as a parent. Like, don't do
Yeah.
them all at once if you could break them up.
also too, it's like, I mean, like, they're seeing more mumps, like they're
Yeah.
seeing more like whooping cough. It's like, I love my husband, but he reads all these articles that come from good places about autism and that the vaccinations are like rooted from the government for control, and I'm like, maybe you're too smart like for me, because like I'm just like, vaccinations are good, they cure disease, like we don't want disease, like.
But those studies are usually like correlatory, right? Like, who knows that it really came from that? Like, my kids have all their vaccination and they will.
I have all my vaccinations, and look how good I am.
Exactly.
It turned out great.
I think we have a name for autism in kids that we didn't before. They were just the weird kid. Like, I definitely have family members that I'm like, oh, that's probably what that was. Like, we're diagnosing it, more people, and I don't know. My kids have vaccinations.
I'm pro vaccines.
Yeah.
And so yes, the COVID vaccine is, there's a lot of controversy on that, but I got my shots.
Yeah, I did too.
I got COVID. I got my shots. My flu was worse than my COVID, but still get my shots.
We kind of skipped it because by the time it was time for kids to have it, it had kind of died off, and so we're like, well, if it was in the middle of it, whenever they were supposed to get it, probably would have got it, but it just didn't work out that way. And
Yeah.
They were sick with it in the beginning. So.
I mean, it's tough to have your kids in the middle of COVID. Like, that's...
The plus was it was very peaceful. Like, there was not near as many people at the hospital. It was just him and me and the baby.
Yeah, you only get, like one person.
Yeah. We didn't even know if he was going to get to be there until, like, the week before. And we're like, okay, good, he can be there, because I did not want to do it by myself.
Just give me my one person.
I know, just at least let me have him there. But the first one was like a circus with my mom and my sister, and my dad and her husband came, and then his sister was there, and there was videos of the birth and all this stuff.
Oh, really?
There was my sister did the videoing the first time, and it was very tasteful, and then Art was in charge the second one, and he was like, I was like, maybe not all of it. We didn't need all of it.
Yeah.
But it was very peaceful, at least, was the plus, whenever it was just us. So there's something for that.
Yeah, I mean...
Silver lining.
There's a couple people that I want to, take my husband. I'd like my mom to be in there, I think she's a good
That's
coach.
nice. Yeah.
Not my dad, not my brothers.
Yeah, oh no.
Yeah,
no.
None of those folks,
no.
That's it.
Yeah.
But, when you're limited who you can have, I think that makes it tough, That would be hard.
It's hard, but then it's also like, it's almost like that destination wedding where you're like, oh, can't invite everybody,
Only the people that really matter will be there.
Yeah.
And what do you have a posse? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I felt like the posse the first time, and the second
I
time
had my
was
whole cheer squad
I know.
from high school in there at the foot of the bed, like with their pom-poms.
Yeah, like, you got this. Keep going. It was less of a circus in some ways and more of it in other, but it was all good.
Yeah. Well, getting back to normal is, I think, a little bit better now. I mean, the traffic's now bad again, so yay.
It's normal again.
Yeah. People are, we've all come back to real life now.
Yeah, people are back to work, all that. Well, thank you for coming. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate chatting with you about plastic surgery and life and kids and being a mom and all the challenges. And
Yes, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful piece of my day. Let's do it again.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, and you can find us at drangelaSturm.com. And how can people find you?
713. I'm just kidding. My social media is at drericabartlett.com. Anytime, take a look, take a gander. I'd love to connect.
Thank you so much. And get this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, Spotify, Apple, any of those. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Angela.
Go.